Hello and welcome to your Arsenal versus Man City preview on the Arsenal Bite Size podcast. I'm your host Clayton, and we're going to cover it all. Predicted lineups, a little bit around the narrative, the stay humble stuff, all of that nonsense. Man City's season so far, the little uptake in form perhaps from them, but what's happened to them to make them get to the point where we were completely dismissing them from the title race. I'll cover it all. Where to start with it? I mean, you go back to that kind of fiery 2-all. That was such a long time ago, weren't it? 22nd of September that was. And I think this is an air quotes rivalry that I think started when we bloodied their nose a little bit a couple of years ago when we kind of accidentally found ourselves in a title race, didn't we? In the 22-23 season, started the season on fire, got to the World Cup, absolutely annihilated half of the league. And then it got to April time, and it was kind of boys v men when we went to the Etihad, weren't it? I think, was that the one where they beat us 4-1? And I think that planted the seed there because I think you see it with Pep and City. I think they're so condescending against their rivals usually. And obviously their main rivals have been Liverpool over the last few years, but I don't, I can't put it into words. I don't think they've had anyone since that Liverpool team where they've had to worry. Um, and yeah, they can be quite condescending. And I think they kind of looked at us in that 4-1, it's like, oh yeah, there was nothing about us then. And then we obviously beat them in the Community Shield on pens. We beat them at home last year. We then drew 0-0 in the away game there. So like we haven't actually lost to them since that 4-1. And like the whole Rodri coming and playing for a draw, like that, I think that it's been an evolution of things that they're rattled by us. They are absolutely rattled by us. And you just have to look. I know things have happened to Man City this season that explains where they are. But fuck me, we've had shit happen to us this season, and the fact I will sing it from the hills. The fact that we are second still and not completely out of a title race, it's a credit to the manager. It really is, in my opinion. He has extracted the absolute most from what's been available to him. And again, you just have to look at what's happened to Man City this season. Like we have had similar circumstances, in my opinion. But yeah, I think it's one of them where we forced them to take us seriously. And I know it's not translated to us winning the Premier League. And I know annoyingly this season they've fallen off and we haven't fully capitalized. But again, I think there's reasons behind that. But yeah, like the whole Rodri, it's a mentality. They came and played for a draw. Like they drew the same fucking game. Stupid idiot. We then played them with a half down to 10 men earlier in this season in that game at home. In the game at the Etihad. And they couldn't beat us. And we had 10 men for a half and they couldn't beat us. Prior to that comment about Rodri, they came and played for us, came and played for a draw. They we beat them 1-0. So yeah, that was twice in the season that they couldn't beat us, and yet Rodri came out with those nonsense narratives. And there was one game where I found it. So Man City beat us on the 15th of February 2023, 3-1. De Bruyne scored, Saka equalised, then Grealish and Haaland got 2 goals within 10 minutes between the 70th and 80th minute. That game, if I've ever seen a strategy of Man City abandoning their principles, it was that. They came and I think, well, the stats I've got in front of me was we had 64% possession, they had 36, and that's not to say like, oh, we deserve to win or anything like that. And far from it. It's more, I think this was the turning point where they started to abandon their principles to try and get the best result on the day. And I think when you see teams starting to do that, it's usually a mark of respect to the opposition. And I'm sure I remember seeing around that time that was City's like record low possession in a Premier League game or something. So I actually think they'll employ a similar strategy tomorrow when they play us. But yeah, I think this is the thing with City's season. Like when we left the Etihad, you got to think of when we were playing that Man City team. Like, I think this is the thing with the timing of when you play teams. Like Man City, it feels like a long time ago to remember this, but they started the season strong. They were actually unbeaten in their first 9 league games, and in a moment they were odds on to win the title, but then obviously they had their cup defeats to Tottenham and Sporting. Yeah, forgot about that Sporting one actually. They then lost like to Bournemouth, Brighton, Spurs again. That 4-0 one. Yeah, they then obviously squandered that loss against Feyenoord. They lost against Liverpool. They then beat Forest in there, but then they were beaten by Juventus. They had 2 draws, 2 defeats over Christmas, and I think they were 1 win from 13 games. So their season really swung. They actually started it pretty strong though, which I think people forget. And that's the time when we were in and around playing them. And this is the thing when I talk about the timing of when you play teams, like we played City when I don't think they'd lost a game yet. And I don't think the injury crisis had hit as hard. And then you kind of look at that middle period and it's like, oh, yeah, the timing of when you play teams matters. But where I was going with that is we left the Etihad, we were fuming, right? Like there was a lot of needle left in that game, like the Trossard red card, whatever you think of it, it influenced the way the game happened. And I personally felt pretty confident that 11v11, we were going to walk out of the Etihad with 3 points on that day. I think I remember that game so clearly. I was quite concerned with how we started. Haaland scored, but then Calafiori slaps in a banger. Gabriel gets that bullet header. He coulda, shoulda had another one as well. And I was feeling good. I was feeling really good. And then Trossard obviously gets that. And I was so confident we'd walk away with 3 points. And then the fact that it was seconds before the death where they got that goal and they celebrated that like they won the fucking league. I think regular listeners will know this about me. I am not celebration police at all because I am a very emotional football fan. I am someone that really feels my feelings and emotions when I watch and experience football. And I'm not the guy that will ever tell a team to not celebrate in a certain manner when you score a goal in the last minute, regardless of the circumstance. Obviously, if you're like losing 5-0 and then go mad, then like, what are you doing? But that told me a lot about them because they couldn't beat us with 10 men. The comments about Rodri playing for a draw, like they're a bunch of entitled hypocrites. And I was going to use a word there that I need to bite my tongue. Like they are a bunch of entitled hypocrites that are under investigation. Let's not forget that they are under investigation for how they got to where they are. They are such a soulless football club. I cannot tell you how much I despise them. And it's because, like, so Liverpool, I don't actually have any dislike towards Liverpool. Probably unpopular opinion there. I know a lot of people talk about their fans being unbearable and this and that. Like my experience, I only try to talk about the Liverpool fans I know in real life, as opposed to kind of online fan bases. And I must say, the Liverpool fans I know in real life all sound, to be fair. But even as a football club, I have respect for Liverpool as a football club. They've done it organically. They've done it properly in terms of how they got there. They've possibly been robbed of a couple Premier League titles. And I just can't stand City. They were a nothing football club before they come into this oil money, and they have absolutely bought their way to where they are. And again, like they are under investigation for how it's happened, and we've bloodied their nose. Sure, Liverpool are the favourites to run away with this year, but let's see. Like, let's see what happens. All we can do is focus on Sunday, and I just think again, we left the Etihad with that needle, like their stupid centre forward, their arrogant centre forward, trying to tell our manager to stay humble, like trying to go on and rattle people. And I think Arteta handled that amazingly on that day. I don't know how he didn't lose his head. And I must say, I think he handled the red card incidents against Wolves magnificently as well. I know it's not popular in circles outside of Arsenal to comment on that, though, is it? But what I'm going to say is in that moment of anger that we left with at the Etihad, I think it almost turned to apathy in a way because of what happened to Man City, where like, yeah, they completely fell off, right? And I don't want that to be lost on the weekend. I think there's a danger that we've kind of fallen into this mindset that, oh, Man City have just completely fallen off. So like the anger gets lost. I hope that returns. Like watch the highlights from that game. Watch interviews of Rodri. Watch whatever you need, especially if you're one of the 60,000 that's going to be in that ground. Watch every bit of content to get you psyched up for it, because we need this atmosphere on Sunday to be a cauldron. Remember Gabriel saying like, "Oh, we'll see what happens when they come to our house." We need to back them up with this. Honestly, like the atmosphere this season, I've said, has been poor. Against Tottenham, it was fantastic. There's been other games that have escaped me. It's been great, but like the Tottenham one, that was one where we were in a moment of adversity as a football club and we united in the stadium to get behind them, and you could feel it. You could really feel it. And like the Tottenham goalkeeper, he was a youngster, came in, he was completely overwhelmed, shat himself. We need, like, are Man City's experienced players going to experience that? Probably not. But can it galvanize our 11 on the pitch? Absolutely. So if you're coming on Sunday, if you're in the Emirates, make yourself loud and proud. Don't forget that anger we felt towards them on in September when we went there. And this can absolutely be a pivotal weekend in the title race. Like Liverpool play Bournemouth today. You never know. We could potentially put a dent finally in Man City, because they're on I'll talk about it in a second, but yeah, they're on a swing of some decent runs coming now. And sorry, that made no sense. They're on the back of a kind of a turning page where, yeah, they've turned the page. They've put together a little unbeaten run. They have got a very tough run coming up, to be fair. But like, can we be the ones that puts that nail in the coffin? The difference between us is 6 points at the minute. So I mean, if we're saying we want to possibly not ruled out catching up 6 points on Liverpool, we have to say City aren't out of it, but we absolutely have it in our control to put the final nail in the coffin for them. So attention turns to the game. And I'll talk through predicted lineups, matchups. If you're in the chat, make yourself known on this Saturday morning. Yeah, very different for regular listeners. You'll know the previews are usually on a Friday afternoon, but being a Sunday game, gone for a little solo on a Saturday morning. And to be fair, I quite like it actually. Let me know what you think. But yeah, if you're live in the chat, let me know where your headspace is at going into the game, what you think the score will be, what you think the team will be, what do you think we'll do at left back. I think that's probably the biggest dilemma. Do you think Waneri deserves to start, or will he return to Trossard and Martinelli either side of Havertz? Let me know. And if you're watching this back on demand as well, if you're not live with me in the chat, let me know. If you're listening or watching this before Sunday, let me know how you're feeling going into it. I'll use that to plug the show. If you are watching live, please drop the stream a like on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. 3 subscribers away from 350, so that will make my day if you can help me get to 350. And if you're listening on audio, give it a 5-star review. It goes a long way. But as I always say, share it with your Gooner mates. Word of mouth is the thing that helps grow the show the most, especially if you like the content. So attention turns to the teams. Team news. Where is it gone? I had it right in front of me. I think Arteta's playing games, isn't he? He's David Raya missed midweek. On Wednesday he said he just wasn't fit, wouldn't elaborate. But then when pressed on it, he said it's a muscular injury. And I'm in a group chat with a lot of Arsenal fans, and one of my mates, Tom, in there, he made a really good point this morning. If David Raya was actually a concern with how Neto played on Wednesday, I think we'd be going and activating that João Garcia? The goalkeeper, I think we'd be activating his release clause, because there is no way we would be playing Neto in goal against Man City. So I think Raya's fine. I think that is one where Arteta's bluffing. White isn't available, but doesn't sound like he's too far. So that's great news, because if we can give Timber a little bit of a breather in the upcoming fixtures, that would be great. So yeah, fingers crossed Ben White's back soon. But yeah, in terms of team news, I think David Raya is the main one. Marino obviously came back into the side as well. So did Odegaard midweek, having missed the Wolves game. So yeah, that's the information we've got. I think the team picks itself personally, other than one position, which is left back. I think Raya comes in. I think Timber will come back into right back. Centre backs pick themselves, Saliba Gabriel. Left back, I'll come back to. Like, what do I think he'll do there? Because I keep changing my mind. Midfield, I think Partey goes to the base, and I think I spoke with Finn when Finn was on, when we reviewed the Wolves game, about Declan Rice, right? And kind of falling into this trap of, do we want him as a 6? Do we want him as an 8? When he's playing the way he is at the minute, I think you just let him run. Let him free. Let that horse go. And I think the best position that gets him to do that is that number 8 role. So I think we have Partey at the base, Rice as that all-action midfield as the left 8, and Odegaard on the right-hand side. Odegaard needs to step up in this game. He really needs to step up in this game. Front three, I think, picks itself as well, in my opinion. I know when Airy scored midweek, I know he was very good. I think there are moments when you go with a player like that. Man City at home with what's on the line isn't one, in my opinion. I think he's already ahead of his developmental path, perhaps, in terms of how many minutes he would have got because of the injuries to Saka, Jesus. And do you know what? If Nwaneri himself didn't get injured, he'd have even more. So I think Arteta's managing him and Lewis Skelly perfectly. I really do. I think Nwaneri is going to get more chances. I just think Arteta will lean into experience in this one. And do you know what? I mean, if you look at City's vulnerability, it's just like running through them, right? And one of the best runners we've got is Martinelli. You look at Nunez as, if I'm being honest, then actually, like, is Trossard someone I associate running power with? Not really. And if you got Nunez at right back, do you want Martinelli there at left wing and have Waneri on the right who has got that running power? Possibly. That's one, interestingly, where tactically, if I'm working on the assumption it is Nunez at right back, it probably suits having Martinelli left, Waneri right. But I just think he will go for the experience, and it will be Trossard on the left and Martinelli on the right. But yeah, tactically that doesn't really add up, to be fair. So yeah, we'll see. But for what it's worth, I think he will go with the experience and that side of things more than the tactical, which isn't something I'd ever usually say about our manager. But yeah, one to keep an eye on. Um, what I'll say on Waneri, I think part of what's driving my opinion, which I haven't really said, is I'm being very careful on how I word this because I don't want it to come across as a criticism at all. It's merely an observation. I do think his ball retention is an area that could do with some work. And again, it's so normal, right? At 17 years old, like, again, it absolutely not a criticism. But again, I think there are games and moments where you choose to take that risk. Against Brighton, he scored, but he was quite poor in possession. There was another game that's escaped me where I felt the same. And again, the wording of this is tricky because I don't want it to come across as criticism. It's just an observation and a developmental area where I think you place that in certain environments to help it grow and develop. Man City at home, given the hostility we may be experiencing, given the tempo that we may inadvertently experience, isn't one. I think this is a game where you need to know when to drive through the team and know when to put your foot on the ball and the studs on the ball and slow it down a little bit. So I think Arteta will lean into the experience in this and go Martinelli on the right, Trossard on the left. Havertz will absolutely come back in. Left back, I mean, yeah, if anyone's in the chat, let me know what you think he'll do because I'm really 50-50 on this. I have to do these weekly predicted 11 threads for the fantasy football community on Twitter. And on that one, I leant towards Miles Lewis Skelly. And my reasoning was, if you look at Calafiori and Miles Lewis Skelly, I think they're both similar, but both different in ways. Like, they're both very comfortable at driving through the thirds, through ball carrying. Through ball carrying. Miles Lewis Skelly is one for me that progresses it from our first third into the middle third and occasionally gets into the final third, but doesn't really get into the box. Calafiori is someone that does all of that, but gets himself into the box as well, as we've seen for his goal against Wolves, his goal against Girona, which was disallowed. He obviously scored against Man City. I know that was a banger from outside the box, but I'm basically torn between these two because who's the better defender is what I'm trying to reverse engineer, because I do think Man City in this game will probably look to sit off in periods and try hit us on the counter fast and hard with your Fodens, your Marmoush, your Haaland and stuff like that. And I think if Ben White was fit, I've got no doubt in my mind, or Tomiyasu, this would be a Ben White right back game and a Timber or Tomiyasu left back game. Not a doubt in my mind. And ironically, it was actually White's injury at the Etihad that put Calafiori in the team, wasn't it? I'm sure this was the game where White caught us by surprise as being injured. Timber went to right back, Calafiori left back. But Calafiori did well in that game. And I must say, there have been moments where I think positionally, Calafiori looks like he's slightly out of position, which I haven't really had with Miles. The only thing I'd say on Miles is there's been a couple of moments where I think he's fantastic in a duel, he's fantastic in a tackle. Again, not a criticism, just an observation. And this will come with the territory of being born and raised as an 8, as a 6, and then being deployed as an inverted left back in such a complicated system. There have been moments where I've seen him be a little bit. This is not because they're not incidents, they're not things that will stick in people's mind. But I'm a proper nerd the way I watch football, and I look at things away from the ball quite a lot. And there have been moments where positionally he hasn't smelt the danger so much proactively. So, like I'll give you an example. Against Wolves, in the first few minutes, they regain the ball, they break. I think it was Semedo broke on the right, and a traditional left back wouldn't run towards the man and the ball. A traditional left back would go and proactively run in, almost like how referees run. They'd run in a diagonal line to go and cover the space. And Lewis Skelly didn't do that. He ran towards the man horizontally, and as a result, it was just a straight foot race. But the man, being Semedo, had momentum and was able to gallop into that space and then get the cross in for Sarabia, I think it was. And again, that's not a criticism. It's just an observation. And these are the things that I think coaches would be thinking of. And do Man City have the ability to do that? Is Calafiori someone that would more... I know I'd said he sometimes gets caught out of position, but is Calafiori someone that would have that ability to think like a defender first in that situation, where if they're breaking, he can spot the area he needs to get to rather than being drawn to the ball and the man? You know, we talk about being ball watchers in football, don't we? I think that happens with defending transition sometimes, where people don't go to the space they should occupy, they go to the man and where the ball is. And I think that's something to be aware of. Again, must stress, it's not a criticism at all, by the way, just a tactical observation. But what do I think we need from this game? Part of it is, I mean, who would have thought that in 2025, a left back against Man City is the thing causing me most concern in terms of predicting an 11. Part of it is the Newcastle game in my mind, like needing threat. I've spoken about us lacking threat. Calafiori gives threat, doesn't he? I think Miles gives threat in a different way. Calafiori gives proper, tangible goal-scoring threat. So I think Calafiori will start against Newcastle, actually. Especially as like their only right wing option is really Jacob Murphy, I think. So not really much to be concerned about there. But against Man City, what does he go for? Does he go for the goal threat? Or does he go for the kind of powerful, press-resistant Miles Lewis-Skelly? As I'm talking this out loud, I'm talking myself into Calafiori, you know. Just like I said, I think, are Man City going to press us? Probably in periods, but in periods, I really think they'll sit off. I think if we're getting pressed, you want Miles, don't you? Because he's so press resistant. He's got that timber. He's got that prime Moussa Dembele about him, where he drops the shoulder, he rides a tackle, he waves, he rides it like a wave, doesn't he? But then if we're lacking threat at the minute as a football team, does he go Calafiori? Oh, mate, I don't know how this sounds for audio. I hope the thinking through the thoughts helps. But let me know if this is rubbish to listen to. I think it will be Miles. I think he'll go Miles. I think he'll go Calafiori for Newcastle. And if we're needing a goal, he'll bring Calafiori on, perhaps. So my predicted 11 is Raya, Timber, Saliba Gabriel, Miles Lewis Skelly. For anyone watching on YouTube, yeah, I just sneezed. Excuse that. I hope I muted it. Midfield three of Partey, Odegaard, Declan Rice. Front three of Martinelli, Havertz, and Trossard. Let me know what you think the team will be. For Man City, not going to try and predict their team, but I will, based on some other data, which I'll go through in a second. But just thought I'd touch on their team that started against Club Brugge. It was Edison in goal. Like I said, Nunes has been playing at right back. John Stones came back into the team and partnered Akanji. They had Vardio there. Midfield three of Kovacic, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva on the right, Foden on the left, Haaland up top. Obviously, Marmoush wasn't available for selection for this game. It's annoying John Stones is back because, oh my God, I would love that bloody Kusanov to play. I know there'll be softies that are like, oh, he's young, he's 20, but I'm someone that's fucking murder that guy's career, honestly. Like, I saw Nicholas Jackson kind of giving him a tap. I was like, that is Tim Pot, mate. Go smell. Prime Diego Costa would have smelled blood and gone and fucking eaten him like a shark. I'm really annoyed Stones is back for this one, I must say. Diaz is out. Ake is out. I'm happy Ake's out because I think he always does quite well against us, to be fair. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to predict the team. I'm going to use this. So for anyone watching on YouTube who may not be familiar with this is a graphic produced by someone called Emma, who does amazing things in the fantasy football space. And her act is Jump the Wave. And for anyone listening on audio, I've got a graphic on screen where what Emma does is she's got spreadsheets where she's got a group of fans for each club. I contribute to Arsenal, and you have to predict the starting 11 using that spreadsheet. And then Emma puts it in a graphic, and it just gives you a probability of across a group of fans of, like, I think it varies from 10 to 40 fans in a group. What's the probability of players starting? And I think you can use that data to see, okay, what are people thinking is the most popular? So if I'm looking at this, the Man City group think this is the benefit of doing this on a Saturday. I get this information, which I don't usually have available on a Friday when I do my previews. So they think it'll be Edison in goal, back four. I'm not going to run through left to right. I'm just going to read through as I see the numbers, just because it's easier for me. It looks like the back four they think will be Vardio, Ake, Stones. Who's the other defense? Oh, Nunes, isn't it? That's why. Okay, that's thrown me. Okay, so it looks like they think the team will be, let me go back to front, right to left. Edison in goal, Matthias Nunes right back, Stones and Akanji centre back with Vardio left back. In midfield, they think Kovacic, Bernardo, De Bruyne, and then a front three of Foden, Marmoush, Haaland. Okay, interesting. Okay. Edison, Nunes, Stones, Akanji, Vardio, Kovacic, Bernardo, De Bruyne, Foden, Haaland, Marmoush. Okay, how do I interpret that as a football team? So midfield is where I go to straight away. Kovacic, Bernardo, De Bruyne. That is a midfield, especially with Bernardo in there. So I was thinking, oh, Doku's out as well, by the way. I remember seeing that. I was wondering if Bernardo will play on the wing. Pep does like doing that in big games. Have Bernardo on the wing, kind of have him inside, just a way to keep the ball, isn't it? But reading that looks like he wants to keep the ball centrally and really hurt us in transition and attack, right? And I think that adds up with what I've said. Like, again, it's something that tactically kind of contradicts itself in what's in my brain, because it's got the profile of a team to hit us hard on the break with Marmoush, Foden, Haaland, De Bruyne playing those passes. But at the same time, with your Kovacic in there, with your Bernardo in there, they're very short 2-3 yards pass it move players, aren't they? So again, I think this will be a game in phases. I don't think you're going to see one hard and fast blueprint. I think there'll be moments in the game where City want us to have the ball. I think there'll be periods in the game where City want to have the ball. The thing I'd say, and this is why I want Declan Rice 8 in this game, Declan Rice would power through that midfield. A midfield protecting the defence of Bernardo Silva, Kovacic, and De Bruyne, that's like a sheet of cling film, mate. That can be punched through. Oh my God. And this is where Odegaard has to step up. I know he's had his injuries. I've been so disappointed with Odegaard recently. He has to step up in this game. No pretty touches. No, do the pretty touches. It gets me off my seat. I like it. But do that and run through them. Do that and be decisive in your final action. Declan Rice is a man that steps up. I've got no doubt in his ability to step up in this game and run through. Martinelli, big game, mate. Run through him. Absolutely run through him. Vardio, we know he likes to attack. I think he's a little bit suspect defensively. John Stones, is he 100% fit? Akanji, like, I mean, I think he's decent to be fair, but like, I do think we can absolutely penetrate that midfield. And again, I spoke in the last after the Wolves game about our obsession with wide areas. I get it. I get it. Like against teams like Villa, you don't want to lose it centrally because they had the likes of Rodgers and Onana prior to him going off injured and Watkins, and they had that running power. And I get it. Man City have your Fodens, your Marmoush, your Haaland. Like you don't want to lose it centrally, but mate, this is where there's one moment that sticks in my mind, which I spoke about after the Wolves game, where we worked the ball really nicely between Partey, Waneri, Martinelli. Martinelli got the ball. He was driving from the right to the centre, and instead of ramming a knife through the heart of Wolves, he put it out wide. Trossard cuts back, crosses, Havertz headers it wide. I want to see moments in this game where we get into the central area and we jam a fucking knife through the heart of this team. I really do. That is the biggest weakness of this Man City team. They are so weak at managing transitions in central areas. I know we have a preference to attack wide. Do it in moments. Don't make it the whole game plan. It would be negligent to not ram a knife through the heart of the biggest weakness of one of our biggest rivals in this moment in time. It would be negligent to not take advantage of that. And if the midfield three is indeed Bernardo Silva, Kovacic, and De Bruyne for all of their on the ball qualities, there is clear vulnerabilities in them defensively there. So absolutely have to take advantage of it if that's the case. I know Nunes as a right back will tuck in and this and that, but mate, Trossard, this is what. Oh, do you know what? If it was my team, again, I always think I'd like to distinguish between the difference between a predicted team and what I think the manager will do. If it was my team, I'm throwing Waneri in and I'm playing Martinelli on the left. I think this is one where Martinelli could have Matthias Nunes on absolute toast. And a little bit more on City's vulnerabilities. Man, I know they beat Bruges midweek, but it was squeaky bum time for a bit. And there were moments where Bruges were running through them. And do you know what? From our perspective, it probably suits us if we let City have the ball, you know? If we let them have the ball, see what they can do. I know they've got talent there in Bernardo and De Bruyne and Foden and Marmoush that can hurt us in the final third. Like Haaland is another one, but the centre-backs absolutely love that battle against him. They love it, and they've done very well against him. I think it suits us to a T if we let them have the ball, and that's where I kind of want Waneri to start. Like, let them have the ball, let us hit them on the counter. And that's not abandoning principles. That's something that we've done quite a lot. Run through them like a fucking glass house, bash through it. Have Martinelli there, have Waneri with the running power. Declan Rice, this game feels so primed up for him. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what we actually go with. I must say, even Partey in midfield, like he's someone that he scared me a little bit recently with he's tried bloody overlapping runs and he's looked quite powerful doing it. Is this a game where he can kind of let loose a little bit? Obviously you need to maintain positional discipline, but yeah, this game feels to me if we can make this, you know, the template of what we watch at the minute is we dominate the ball, we get to the final third, but we look a bit toothless. That's not what we should be doing in this game. That is not what we should be doing in this game. This is a game where we need them to have the ball a lot. It will frustrate, but it is the way that you maximize our chances of putting a knife to their weaknesses. And that's what football should be sometimes. So I kind of hope we let them have the ball a bit and we punch through them and really annihilate them, because the one thing I'll say is this is not going to be a walk in the park. I know, and I think we can fall into this trap of looking at their results. Like, oh my God, they lost 4-0 against Tottenham. They got battered by Sporting Lisbon. Like, what was it Newcastle did to them? There's one other one that's really escaping me now. No, it wasn't Newcastle. No, ignore me. But like, we can fall into this trap of what Tottenham did to them, what Sporting Lisbon did to them, and like that spell they went through. There's something that I can't explain about a one-off game, regardless of the context you're in, where psychologically you just get yourself to 110%. And I think there's something in those games against the Tottenhams, against the Sporting Lisbons, where they are not, I'm not saying they're not psychologically geared up to 100%, but are they as mentally focused to the best degree of detail they can be compared to a game where this has got all the narratives and the context behind it? Like, I think there are certain games of football in a calendar year you almost go through the motions. This isn't one of them, and we've seen it with Arsenal and like Man United over the years, right? How many bad Man United teams have we played, and they rock up, and it's like they don't look as bad as they've been recently. There's something that I can't put into words as to why that is, but it is, and I think this will be one where we're not going to play a City team that look as bad as they've been. And I spoke a little bit about an uptake in form, right? I need to get better at this when I'm reading from other sources. I had it in front of me, but where has it gone? Yeah, here it is. So they're unbeaten in 6 Premier League games, right? And only Newcastle have actually won more points than them since Christmas. Yeah, so that's one to keep an eye on. I must say, looking at it, like it was a draw against Everton, a win against Leicester, West Ham, and the battered Ipswich, a draw against Brentford, and they beat Chelsea. So like, there's teams in there that you'd kind of expect them to beat, but they did have a loss against PSG in the middle of that, which they absolutely bottled, didn't they? I think they were 2-0 up, weren't they? Clowns! I can't stand them, man. Yeah, I think that's that. Score predictions again. There's something I can't put into words about. Basically, as much as I think we can take advantage of City's vulnerabilities, I don't think we're going to see this open, gaping hole in Man City like we've seen in other games. I think everything planning wise would have been geared towards this game. Everything psychologically will be geared towards this game. They're going to not leave a stone unturned in the preparation and the detail. And there's still weaknesses we can exploit in that, but it's just worth knowing that when we kind of set our expectations. I must say, despite I know we don't have Saka, I know we don't have Jesus, they don't have Rodri, right? With what's available, I'll go through my concerns before my confidence. My concerns is I think their quartet of forwards, and I'm including De Bruyne in that and Bernardo in moments, worries me. It really worries me. That Marmoush looks electric. Foden, I think, is inconsistent in my opinion as a football player, but he's got talent. And he's got talent that can hurt us, in my opinion. And I do worry a little bit about how they may try and exploit our left back area. I do worry if De Bruyne gets on the ball and he's able to play passes through to Haaland, to Marmoush, to Foden. But I think this is a game where systematically we have to be on it. We have to be compact. We have to press. We have to work hard. Not that we ever don't, but there's been moments in games where we look a tiny bit stretched. This is a game where we can't. So that's my concerns on them. My confidence, I've spoken about it. I think if that's the midfield, we could power through that. I think we can. I've spoken about Liverpool teams of the past, just feeling like they would physically overwhelm you and dominate you. I think we have the ability to do that, and a large part of my confidence in our ability to do that comes from Declan Rice. I think this is a game where if he's man of the match, we win this football game. Score prediction. I mean, we've got Adisu in the chat. He says Arsenal 11, City 0. You listen to the Arsenal Vision podcast, don't you? Because we will speak to you after Arsenal 10, City 0, as Elliot always says. I think 3-1 to the Arsenal. I think City will make us scared and worried in periods. Yeah, but I think we can absolutely power through them. And I think Arteta tactically in these one-off games, he gets it bang on, don't he? And I think with what's available, he will get it right. We haven't lost against City. I forgot what it was now. I said it at the start, but was it since that 4-1 at the Etihad? So like tactically, Arteta gets it spot on in these games. Yeah, the 1-0 at the Emirates last year, he got it spot on with the changes, didn't he? He brought on Tomiyasu, brought on Partey. Those two combined for Martinelli's goal. The 0-0 at the Etihad, I know people will remember how we played. We had chances. We absolutely had chances in that game. And again, they didn't beat us. The 2-2 this season, mate, we're winning that 11v11. I don't care. We were winning that. And after a rocky start, we had them chinned, mate. We had them rattled. Don't forget that they were absolutely rattled. And again, that was Man City before their blip. They hadn't lost in the season when we played them. Their blip, so that game was the 22nd of September. Their blip started at the start of November. So don't forget that in the terms of context of when we played them. So I think Arteta will do a job on them. I really hope he does anyway. Again, Liverpool play Bournemouth today. Can we hope for points from that? But it's all on tomorrow. Just bring the energy. If you're there, bring your energy, because like I said, I think there's a danger that we can fall into apathy towards City, and it's like, oh, they're done. They're not done. They are not done yet. This is a chance to make them done and put the final nail in the coffin. But as said, they've had a turn in form domestically, and it's on us to try and knock them back down a peg, because yeah, they hate us. They hate us, and it is a chance for us to go on and win this game, beat them, make it a hostile environment, overwhelm them. Don't forget the way they spoke to our manager. Don't forget the shit they tried to talk about us in the press. So I'll leave it there. If you're watching still, thank you very much. Drop the stream a like if you've enjoyed this. Help me get to 350 subs. If you're listening on audio, give it a 5-star review and share it with your mates. Subscribe to the channel for when we go live in future. We'll have a review of the game next week. I think, yeah, the game's on Sunday, right? Tomorrow. So review will probably be on Monday. Whew, bring it on. I cannot wait. Come on, Bournemouth, and come on, the Arsenal. Let's fucking do this. I cannot wait. Just make the atmosphere hostile if you're there, because we have the ability to do it. We've seen us do it before. So let's make it happen. Let's fucking do this. Up the Arsenal.